All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And what's up, everybody? Oh, please be seated. I am really humbled by your reception. I've got that feeling that you're carrying the Tim Walz energy. Is that what it is, everyone?
What?
Tim Walz energy. Oh, my God. You've reinvigorated yourself and then reinvigorated America. Is that what's happening? Yes, I get it. I totally get it. And it happens on a day with so much other stuff going on.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians.
Where
I'm
are
a Christian.
Christians?
I love you.
Let me hear from my Christians. All right. I am excited because it is Albert's birthday today. And that is...
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, come on, Albert. And this is kind of a big birthday for Albert. Albert produces this show. And for those who are new, I just mentioned that. Albert, should I mention which birthday it is?
Sure, I don't mind. No.
Well, why don't you mention it?
I am 33, so...
33 years old. Well, that is really cool. And I have good news and bad news about 33 that I'd like to share from the book of Mark Thompson, which I will give you in just a moment. As I say, the news is good, and maybe you'll find it bad. 33, Albert, is, in my judgment, the gotta grow up age. Like, 33 is where you kind of go, okay, dude, like, you can't hang on to total irresponsibility anymore. It's time
you
to
can't be out till bars closing hours, I feel
Thank
like,
you.
at this age.
You can't blow stuff off quite the way you used to, be able to play catch up. You just begin to huff and puff a little bit. For those reasons, it's time to segue. It's not a horrible drop, into an ice bath kind of transition. It's just a segue into adulthood. So happy birthday to fresh-faced producer Albert.
Thank you,
Albert, thank you.
When I met Albert, he was just a young 20-something.
I
used
think
to call him fresh.
33, you're still young and youthful and fresh.
You are, but it's time to begin to transfer that youthfulness into responsibility, and oftentimes 33 is the age at which you pivot.
And I agree with all of this. And a couple weeks ago, I've been feeling the age. I woke up one morning, my body just felt sore for no random reason, and I was complaining to my girlfriend about it. I was like, "Why am I sore? I didn't work out too hard. I'm just sleeping. I'm just waking up. I'm just living." And then she said, "I think it's because you're getting old."
Yeah,
as someone in her 20s.
Wow.
What?
Oh man, that is. It's nice that you have that relationship already. Well, believe me, as the decades pass, the number of times you wake up in the morning and you have new pains or bizarre phenomenon on your body will only increase. I mean, I'll tell you, I mentioned this to you a couple of years ago. I woke up one morning and one of my fingers was completely down like that. It had, during the night, it had curled, and it took the other hand to open it. So I run to the computer, and I look it up, and it's called trigger finger. It's a thing, okay? And it's a thing because as you get older, stuff happens. You know what I mean? The warranty is pretty much expired. And now, yeah, so now I have like, it'll be that finger, then that finger, then that finger. Look, I've got a splint on this finger. I'm telling you, you have so much to look forward to.
So here's what happens when you get older, Albert. All your conversations become about the ways in which you're injured or somehow hurting. See,
that
this
is
fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
And that's
Are
true.
you telling me we're not talking about the next time we're going to go out partying or drinking at this age?
No, we're not talking about that anymore. No.
And that's the next big conversation you have to have. The next big conversation you have to have is the conversation I just had with myself, which I haven't shared with you before, but I'll just give you a little look. This is way down the tunnel of getting older, so you don't have to worry about this for a while, Albert. But I had to have that conversation where I go, you know what? Just think that I don't really drink a lot, but I don't think it's helping me, whatever little bit I do drink. So I really limit it. Now I drink the wine a little bit, but I'm pretty much off the hard stuff, which kills me.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Well, yes, and I have ramped up the weed, so that is the...
That's kind of I'm disillusioned because I kind of pictured you playing poker and drinking whiskey.
Well, I'm playing poker, but...
no whiskey.
Yeah,
No.
had to back it down a little bit. Anyway, Albert is our guy. Judy says, happy birthday to you, Albert. We do love Albert. I'll remind you that when we were first told on the radio, this show came from a talk radio show. And then the station went away, so we moved it over here to YouTube, and we're on all the major audio podcast platforms. When I was told that they had to get rid of all the producers, and Albert would be leaving, and I felt like I'd worked really hard to develop Albert as a personality and to have a relationship on the show. It was, and I just loved working with Albert. I thought he worked so well on the air. He sounded young, so for me to call him fresh-faced producer Albert, I thought really worked. When they told me he was not going to be there anymore, and I had to announce it on the air, I remember choking up. I really did. I mean, that's the kind of connection I feel to Albert. And I think a lot of other people do too. Look at Pietro. A $20 super chat. Albert, happy birthday. Get a martini on me, or a gummy, or whatever. Yeah.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Pietro. You're loved by many, Pietro. Albert.
Yep, and thank you to the rest of the comments. I've been reading all of these. You're scaring Albert and all the other nice little messages from everyone.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is our goal to scare Albert. So if we are, it's very good. Nancy says happy birthday. So anyway, happy 33, Albert. Look at this.
33 it sounds like a great mega number. I think you should play the lottery today.
I might just do that. My Larry Bird year. Yeah, I'm excited for this.
Yeah. Well, go nuts. But please show up to work tomorrow. Although I think you're off tomorrow, right?
No, I'm here, and then I'll be leaving for a wedding over this weekend. Yep.
Yeah. Very, very good. Albert, I could chat about your birthday all day, but I already have. So it's time to
The Mark Thompson
move
Show.
on. This is a big show. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Professor Andrew Fraknoi joins us at the more or less bottom of the hour, the first hour. And at the top of the second hour, more or less, it'll be Mo Kelly from KFI Radio and iHeartRadio to talk politics. And finally, at the bottom of the second hour, the second half of the second hour, it's The Planet Stupid. We talk about environmental concerns and the planet at large. So we'll get that going. I had planned to, this is great. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. You can put Harry Magnan with a 5 spot. Happy birthday, Albert. I hear they named a famous hall after you. You get that, Albert? Of course.
Yes.
You were there.
I took a picture in front of it a couple months ago when I was there.
Yeah, he was just in there.
Albert, thank you.
In England. Then there is that Trevor Starr in Hollywood. Now, what is that, Albert?
It says happy birthday in Tagalog, Maligayang Kaarawan. So,
wow,
thank you, Trevor.
Look at that Trevor with the Tagalog. Very impressive. Man, big shout out. Thank you for the 10 spot.
Can you say it again, Albert? I love the way you said it.
Maligayang Kaarawan. That means happy birthday. It's very formal. We usually just say happy birthday, but that works too.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I wanted to hit you with some pretty big politics stuff, a big political chunk. Before I did that, I wanted to get you something that was a little appetizer, not necessarily politics. And so in that spirit, I will proceed with that plan and tell you that
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's happened, Albert, and it's happened for your birthday. Mr. Worldwide. Do you know who Mr. Worldwide is, Albert?
Of course, it's the great Pitbull.
It is the great Pitbull.
Yeah.
That's right. Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305. He is making a mark in college sports. Again, this is just an appetizer to some of the big stuff that's going on in this country and the world. Here is what Pitbull has done. He's bought the naming rights to Florida International University's football stadium. So you know how all the stadiums have the, crypto.com or,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Oracle Park, yeah.
Oracle Park, thank you. Chase Arena, whatever it is. So it was announced that Pitbull, his real name is Armando Perez, has signed a 5-year deal worth $6 million with an option to extend after the first 5 years.
Wow.
And the stadium will be named after Pitbull.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. Florida International University's football stadium will be called Pitbull Stadium. It's my great honor to officially announce a partnership unique to the 305 with a worldwide brand, said the athletic director, Scott Carr. I wanted to see if Pitbull had a quote. His new deal apparently is going to coincide with a deal made to sell something at the stadium, Albert. Pitbull's vodka will be sold there. Yeah.
Nice.
Got an exclusive vodka deal at the same time that he's got the exclusive deal to name the stadium after Pitbull.
That's like a $3.05 shot of vodka. That would be perfect.
Oh, that's right. There you go.
Mr. 305.
He'll also have 2 suites for up to 40 guests, the ability to use the venue for 10 days each year, probably for, musical shows or something like that, and the title official entrepreneur of FIU Athletics. He'll also record an anthem for the university and promote it on social media. So it's exciting if you're waiting for Pitbull to finally buy a major sports venue and for Mr. Worldwide to finally go a little more worldwide. Well, that's the news. Pitbull Stadium. You will find it in Florida, everybody. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Beth Farmer with a happy birthday, Albert shout out and a $20 super chat.
Big shout out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth Farmer. We're a crowd-funded show, so we make a big deal out of the people in the crowd who fund us. That's how it works. What do you think of Tim Walz? I told you a lot about him yesterday. I know we're all sort of getting to know him better. But Hula Steph with a $5 super
Big shout out.
chat for Albert as well, and a birthday greeting. I think the consensus is that it's a safe pick. And then after that, you begin to get into some of the political camps and the clear biases that come from those camps when it comes to evaluating Tim Walz. Albert, give us a setup piece on Walz and the big coming out party they had yesterday, and then I'll share with you a couple of instances of what I'm talking about.
After weeks of anticipation and speculation, this evening, Vice President Kamala Harris making her first appearance alongside her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
The newly minted Democratic ticket making their debut at a rally in Philadelphia.
In his state, he has been a model chief executive, and with his experience, I'm telling you, Tim Walz will be ready on day one.
The one-time teacher, coach, and veteran addressing the crowd of thousands.
It was my students. They encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment of common good, a belief that one person can make a difference.
The news comes amid a razor-thin election. 538 polling averages show Harris up just over 1.5 points above Donald Trump. The Democratic Party hoping Walz can give Harris the edge needed to strengthen the ticket in Middle America and win the White House.
We got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead.
That electricity was palpable tonight in that crowd.
Pause for the facts.
And there's a spot that runs in the middle. That's because just we. But
I think my
everybody talked about the electricity. Go ahead, Kim.
My favorite thing that he said was, regarding reproductive health. And he said, and this isn't the golden rule, but he said, haven't you ever heard of the golden rule? Mind your own damn business. I thought that was really good.
I think Trevor's sending me that as a drop, too, that we might end up in the rotation. Does it continue,
Awesome.
Albert, at all? Do you want to run a little bit more, or what do you think? No? Moving on. I found the reactions within the GOP to be interesting. And, of course, the reactions among the Democrats also not less interesting, I might say, in that they were supportive and I think excited, and probably sincerely so. I'm just saying it was somewhat predictable. What's your next piece of video? Albert's next piece of video would be this. This is Buttigieg in that spirit talking about Walz and the difference he can make to the campaign. And let me just say, I wouldn't run this if it were just, some hack thing said. I thought Buttigieg was particularly good here that I wanted you to hear. It's only about 90 seconds. Go ahead.
For the ticket.
I'm really excited. Like you said, she had so many great directions she could go in. She also has found an extraordinary partner who has brought that joy immediately to the campaign trail, and somebody who I think sets up this ticket and this campaign even more than was already true to be about all of us. That's the thing I'm really excited about. As you showed, he has such a compelling story, such an interesting biography, classroom teacher, many years in the military, football coach, and then a very effective member of Congress and governor. But one thing you notice right away about him is that it's not about him. I was thinking about what those different experiences have in common: being a teacher, being a coach, being a senior non-commissioned officer. And what they all have in common is they're all about cultivating and supporting other people. And you can tell that's what he's about. And that's what this ticket is about. I think it's one of the reasons why the Trump campaign can't figure out what to do with this ticket, even more so today than what's been true ever since she became the nominee. They cannot fathom a campaign or any leaders who are not about themselves. But this campaign, as impressive and compelling as the ticket themselves are, they've also made it clear that this campaign isn't about them. It's about you. It's about us. It's about the future of this country. And I think his personal qualities and his message really speak to that in a way that's going to continue that focus on the American people. That's how she's going to win this election.
So there, I think, is some truth to that. I think they do sort of have a populist message in a sense. Mm-hmm. And that message may land. Again, highly partisan country, highly divided, already in the respective camps are most people. But that said, some stuff can punch through, and some stuff can get people off the couch, or at least more disposed to perhaps vote for the Democrat in this case than to leave it blank, which is, I think, a category that a lot of people were falling into. When I say a lot, remember these elections, because of the Electoral College, decided by tens of thousands of votes. It's obscene, but that's the way America's presidential election is decided. Play me a little bit. Sorry?
I was going to say we have a kind of, I would say, a troll in the chat. But if this is the best that Republicans can do, the name calling.
Oh, yeah, cackling Kamala and tampon Tim. Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's
your
right.
fight. That's not enough. Right. That's not good enough. That's not an argument.
Well, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know what's good enough, just to be honest. But I know that that's getting old, and that's sort of the hack, put down the name stuff. That used to work for Trump, but doesn't seem as though people are sparking to it as much. But it works in a chat. Like if you jump into a chat and you just go, hey, tampon Tim and cackling, okay, then it works. You can, you can stir the pot that way. But honestly, I don't think, if you're talking about actually winning an election, that's certainly not a strategy. Play me a little bit of homeboy, what's his name? Frank Luntz. Frank Luntz is the GOP pollster, and he said something that really jumped out at me this morning. Give it a quick listen.
Here from the pollster Frank Luntz. And Frank, welcome to News.
He's talking here to Mary Poppins, everybody. It's very, quite extraordinary.
Give us a clue, will you? Why do you think she picked him?
He's a safe choice.
if I was in her situation, I would have gone with the governor of Pennsylvania, because he definitely brings the state, and Pennsylvania is the largest of all the swing states that are out there. He would have provided more electoral votes. But let me emphasize, I do believe, and I understand the importance of what I'm about to say, that Vice President Harris is now the front runner in this race. I know that Trump people, their minds will explode, but Harris has got the intensity. She's got momentum. She's bringing people back into the political fold that had left when Joe Biden was going to be the candidate. That Donald Trump has made a series of misstatements, that his vice presidential choice has not done well. And Tim Walz is a good speaker, very presentable, knows the issues, and mirrors her point of view. I still would not have done that, because the goal right now is to win those states that matter the most, because we're not a simple national democracy. You have to win the Electoral College, as was shown in 2016. But the combination of her being a front runner and Walz being a good speaker, she's got the win at her back. And she hasn't even gone through the 4 days of the convention yet, which will be yet another bounce for her.
And Frank, can I just interrupt you to ask you, is that a hunch, or are you basing that on polling, the fact that she is, you believe, the front runner? It's the first time you're saying that, is it?
Yes, and there's so many polls that are now available, as well as our focus groups. And we did a session, I don't know if you're going to show it, but you have a focus group that we sent to you of voters who are not voting for Joe Biden, but are now voting for Kamala Harris. And they do so for two reasons. Number one, it was a vote against Biden about his age, and they thought that he couldn't do the job. But number two, they thought that Harris is exciting, energizing, compelling, and she's talking more about the stuff that she will do. And Donald Trump has fallen back into the old attacks and the old viciousness. This is Trump's election to lose, based on the public's belief that his administration has been better, or was better, than the Biden-Harris administration. But he's losing it with speeches that have the same sort of ad hominem attacks to a public that has had enough and wants to look for something different, something new, something focused on the future.
So that was kind of what we were saying when we were talking about the troll. We were saying that, you know, you can go with the nickname stuff, but the reality is that all polling shows people are kind of over the nickname and the call and response thing that he does at his rallies and everybody. I mean, that show is getting a little old. We even showed you video of people leaving the Trump rallies early. His last week or so during which he's done rallies. Remember, this is his post-assassination attempt. You would think there'd be like a fervor about supporting him. But his meandering, his rambling, it's apparently getting old. I mean, I didn't think that those people could ever tire of anything Trump, but apparently some are. MAGA trying to swift-boat Tim Walz. They're accusing a 24-year lifer, a command sergeant major, of stolen valor because he retired from the U.S. Army to serve Americans for 12 years in Congress. Yeah, the stolen valor thing is about, I think, the rank at which he retired. We can discuss it more. Maybe even Mo Kelly, when he's here, wants to touch on it. But it is probably something of a non-starter. I would say the degree to which you hammer away and swift-boat the person who's bottom of the ticket is wasted time. You know, the amount of concentration you should spend on the person who's number two on the ticket really is implied in the fact that they're number two on the ticket. I wouldn't, you know, I'd use my resources and I'd use my media time to go for top of ticket. Now, strategically, you can go after him for progressive views. I discussed them yesterday. I don't understand how breakfast and lunch at school for kids is a progressive position. I don't understand how codifying Roe and women's reproductive rights is a progressive position. If you listen to faux news, he's the most liberal governor in the history of the United States and the universe and all the multiverses. Yeah, and that's the call, right? He's progressive. He's too progressive for America. And then you get into immigration and you get into trans rights and the questions around trans teens. And that is something in Minnesota you can have a reasonable conversation about. And it's funny, Kim actually raised my consciousness and awareness. I don't even think I noted it to her on the air, but because of her backing of the California policy when it comes to trans kids, it made me look at this trans issue in a different way, because Minnesota has a similar one, kind of a parallel policy, don't they, Kim?
I'm not sure what Minnesota's policies are, but I know in California now, in most school districts, if not all, that if a child identifies as a different name or by a different pronoun at school, that you don't notify the parents, correct?
Right. That's exactly right. And I mean, you can have a conversation about that, but you were saying to me, you think that's important.
I do think it's important. I think that you would ask me if it was my child, would I want to know? And my answer was and remains the same, that I would hope I have a good enough relationship with my child that they feel comfortable coming to me first and talking it through. But if they don't, and if a child doesn't have that relationship with their parent, they need to have a safe space to be able to be themselves, to try on different hats, to figure out who they are. And when they don't have that outlet, it becomes dangerous. So it would be, in this case, my fault for not having open lines of communication with my child, not the school district's fault. They're making a safe place for my kid. Yeah.
The House of Representatives in Minnesota passed a bill by a 68-62 vote. It was in 2023 that would prevent state courts or officials from complying with child removal requests or extraditions or arrests or subpoenas that are related to gender-affirming health care that a person gets in Minnesota. So on the other side of it, there are 8 states that have all-out bans on gender-affirming care for transgender youth, including any medications or surgical services. I mean, it's a total ban. So if you get into Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Iowa, Mississippi, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Utah, they've all issued all-out bans on any kind of support for transgender youth. So it's a sensitive subject, and I guess I mention it because of everything that's going on. To me, he's not progressive particularly at all, except, I guess, if you get to the trans thing. I don't even think there's anything controversial about the breakfast and lunch at school, codifying Roe. These are, this should be boilerplate stuff, but I can see that these are hot button issues related to trans and related to immigration. You know, the notion that you can essentially set up policies in your state that offer services to those who've immigrated there. The idea is somehow that it encourages illegal immigration. Again, I think you can take a meeting on that. Oftentimes these services are offered so you don't end up with an underclass perpetuating crime and other things that they have to get into because there's no way they can legitimately get employment, and then there is no way they can legitimately seek shelter. In other words, the world of someone who has got into the country illegally is fraught with all kinds of issues that do spill over onto those of us who live here legally. So those are the only 2 things that I can find in Walz's history that can be at all hot button issues. Otherwise, I see him as somewhat mainstream when it comes to things that poll incredibly well. Even the gun thing, he's got the gun rights thing that he put in there so that there is a regulation on gun ownership in Minnesota. That's agreed with by over 70% of Americans. So this isn't a guy who's wildly progressive or liberal. I'd say he's pretty much walking in step. I don't mean to dry clean his record. I mean, you may feel that his position on trans youth and his position on immigration and benefits to immigrants who are people who are here illegally, you may feel that's a deal buster. Okay, but I'm suggesting to you, of his positions, those are the 2 that really jump out at me. And apart from that, it seems to me like it's another day at the office in America, and his positions are far more consistent with those of average Americans than are the positions of, for example, the right wing. The GOP that overturned Roe, they are far more flying in the face of what people want in terms of freedom and liberties in this country than than Tim Walz or Kamala Harris.
Because we know that the majority of Americans want reproductive freedom, and we know that the majority of Americans want common sense gun laws.
The talk, he's a solid pick, says Kay Plant. I wish it was Kelly, but so be it. It's Walz. Yeah, it's interesting to me. There was a whisper campaign. This is the kind of thing that makes you just infuriated. There was a whisper campaign on the part of the GOP to run down Shapiro so that Democrats might go for Walz. This is at least according to reporting I was reading this morning. And the way the whisper campaign worked, in essence, is that they played Shapiro up as though he was a big supporter of Israel. And they did that in conjunction with not the Republicans, but of course the progressive left. So the whisper campaign aligned itself with that extreme wing of the Democratic Party, and they tried to dirty up Josh Shapiro and create a sort of controversy around him because Republicans didn't want to face Josh Shapiro. This is the reporting. I mean, you can agree with it or disagree, but it did happen. So I mentioned to you yesterday that, Josh Shapiro has a very tough position on Israel. It may be tougher than anybody else on the ticket. He's spoken out intensely and passionately and emotionally against Benjamin Netanyahu. And he has, it's interesting to me, spoken out against Israeli policy. He's been very forward about that. But he is Jewish, and there is, sadly, in my judgment, a strain of, you can call it anti-Semitism, an uncomfortableness with a Jewish person on the ticket. I'd suggest that was reflected in their choice. Again, I'm not saying they're anti-Semitic. I'm not saying Kamala Harris is. I'm not saying the people who are on the committee. I'm saying they're evaluating the degree to which Americans in general may be anti-Semitic or racist or anti-gay, or you get the point. So they have to, as I was mentioning to you yesterday, they cast this in a way. If you think of it as a casting, he's got to measure up in so many different ways, philosophically, from a temperament standpoint, and then you have these other wild cards like religion. It's insane, but this is the country where that stuff really lands in a very big way. Meanwhile, B.A. Ware says this ought to cover the cost of making the Oakland Coliseum the Mark Thompson Show Stadium. Yes, in the manner of Pitbull.
Big shout out.
Happy birthday, brother Albert. How about that? With an 11-11 from B.A. Ware. And Flo Galvez. Albert, you got a lot to look forward to on your birthday.
Albert, thank you.
Not that you won't go dancing, but it may be but it may be mostly at concerts. Happy birthday, Albert. You're great. Cheers.
Albert, thank you.
Flo Galvez. And Ms. Organic for Albert's birthday. 420. What up, people?
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, you know, Albert.
Anybody bit a weed?
You're going to get that birthday heat on. Franco for the 5 spot. And happy birthday, Albert, says everyone in the chat. We love it. Thank you for the waves.
Thank you, everyone, again.
Yeah.
And the esteemed Andrew Fraknoi is standing by.
Oh, good. You know. All right. So without any further delay, I will move on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
First, I'd like to call out Kim, and it relates to Professor Andrew Fraknoi. Professor Andrew Fraknoi is a distinguished astronomy professor. I called him the Bay Area's Carl Sagan back when people knew who Carl Sagan was. That was in the 80s. Now I call him the Bay Area's Neil deGrasse Tyson because people know more Neil deGrasse Tyson. But when I reconnected with Professor Fraknoi, I did so at KGO, and I called him Andy Fraknoi because I always remembered him being referred to as Andy Fraknoi. And it quickly became clear to me, because I asked him about Andy and Andrew. He seemed to be using Andrew more.
Right.
He said that Jim Eason was the one who started calling him Andy, and that's kind of just caught on. And he said, but that really was the only person who called him Andy. And I found implied in that, Kim, was that we should not call him Andy any longer.
Okay.
So in your communication today, which I happened to read to Professor Fraknoi, you called him Andy.
Oh, no.
Yes. And so I'd like you to lead with...
My bad. I
apologize.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
Yeah, I just
I
think
apologize to the Fraknoi community and all the astronomers among us.
Here he is.
I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yeah, okay. So you stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
All right. This is the great astronomy professor, Andrew Fraknoi, everyone. Hello, sir.
Oh, my goodness. What an introduction.
Why can I not hear him? Oh, there he is. Okay, good.
What an introduction.
Yes, sorry you had to see that little bit of controversy, but it involved you. So there you have it. The Perseid meteor shower, sir. This is going to be quite a show?
Well, we hope so. So once a year, the Earth and its orbit goes into a swarm of what we can only call cosmic garbage. If you don't want to call it garbage, you can call it debris, which is a fancy name for garbage. But there's an old comet that's left behind a bunch, literally, of dirt in space. And every August, we encounter that swarm of dirt. And as the dirt burns up in the Earth's upper atmosphere, you get what's called a shooting star or a meteor. And we're going to have that exact event, the meteor shower, this weekend. It's especially good Sunday night and Monday morning, but it'll be good on Saturday night too. So if you're in a dark place, somewhere away from city lights, away from the fog, look up this weekend and check out the sky. You're much more likely to see shooting stars than usual.
Well, when you ask if I'm in a dark place, for me, I'm always in a dark place. But now I realize you want to get away from city lights. And what, since it's an annual event, what elements actually and what variables influence how good it will be, how visual it will be?
Well, so this is a comet called Swift-Tuttle, which goes around the sun in about 130 years. And so it's whenever we're in the thickest part of the left behind debris, you get more shooting stars. We're not in a particularly thick part this year. And the moon, if it's in the sky, its light can interfere with seeing the faint flashes of light. And you're going to have moonlight this time around until about 11:30 or midnight. So it's even better for the night owls who can get up after midnight. But still, you are much more likely to see shooting stars this weekend than you normally do in the evening sky.
All right. So, and if you can get out there after 11:30, into when the moon is gone, in a sense,
right.
You should have until dawn to see this stuff.
Right. That's
wow.
right. Yeah. And
that's pretty great.
Dark, but just think of it like in the cartoon, in the Peanuts cartoon, there's a character called Pigpen. And wherever Pigpen walks, you see a stream of dirt behind him. And think of it that way, that we're just encountering that dirt. And throughout the night, and probably Saturday and Monday night too, you'll be able to see the results of that encounter.
If I drive, says Michael, 30 miles out of town, I can see everything. I can see the Milky Way. Is that right? Are we 30 miles in one direction away from being able to see the Milky Way?
Well, you have to figure out which 30 miles. If you
right,
to San Jose, you're going to have as many lights as you did in San Francisco. But if you get out into the country and you're able to really let your eyes get dark adapted, which I would give you 5-10 minutes minimum just to let your eyes get adapted to the dark, just like in a movie theater. Then if you have a clear sky and you look up, there are so many things you can see in the night sky that you can't see in the city, including the thickening of our galaxy in what we call the Milky Way.
Ask Professor Fraknoi, says John Watson, what happened to that periodic nova that was supposed to happen? Did I miss it, or is it still coming?
Yes, so a nova is actually an interesting phenomenon in astronomy. It's a double star. It's two stars that live together. And one of the stars is kind of almost like a corpse of a star. And the living star dumps material onto that corpse until the corpse flares up briefly. And that's called a nova. And there is a nova that's coming, but it won't be the kind of thing which you can see with the naked eye. It's something at the very edge of visibility. So astronomers will be excited about it, but it's not something that the average person is going to have a sense that it's happening in the sky.
In the tips from Professor Fraknoi, hints for taking a meteor shower in, you mentioned don't use a telescope or binoculars because they limit your field of view. This is one of those situations where you can just lie out, take in the whole sky.
That's right. I always say that meteor showers are for the 99%, not the 1%, as Bernie used to say. That you don't need fancy equipment or expensive things. All you need is your eyes and an ability to see as much of the sky as possible. So if you're out in the wilderness, but there are trees all around you, you won't be able to see the sky. But if you can be out on a field and lie back or sit back in a chair, let your eyes get adapted to the dark, have the whole sky in front of you like the great natural screen that it is, then you're much more likely to be able to see shooting stars because they could happen anywhere in the sky.
William is asking, ask Andrew how reliable, oh, there you go. There's a shot of, what is that? That's the night sky the way it would be, looking northeast at 11. Okay.
Right, so this, what we're seeing here is something that's a little bit misleading for the average person. So we call this the Perseid meteor shower because if you could trace back the line of all the shooting stars, the different lines would meet in the constellation of Perseus. So it's the Perseid meteor shower, but they don't actually happen in that constellation. They can happen anywhere in the sky. So people think I need to be able to see the constellation of Perseus. No, you don't. You just need to see the sky, and then anywhere in the sky there could be the shooting star.
Now to another kind of visual phenomenon in the sky, which is really quite spectacular as well. Ask Andrew how reliable the 27-day cycle is in predicting the aurora borealis. That's a totally different phenomenon, the aurora borealis.
That's right. So let's talk about that. So if you've been to Alaska or Finland, places that are really north, you know that there can be a beautiful curtain of light in the sky, a kind of flickering curtain of color in the sky, which is called the northern lights or the aurora borealis. And people often wonder, where does that come from? It turns out that it comes actually from the sun. The sun produces a wind, an actual flow of particles coming from the sun. They encounter the rest of the solar system. They move at about 1 million miles per hour, these particles from the sun. And when they encounter the Earth is protected by what we call a magnetic field, a kind of magnetic bubble that envelops us and protects us from radiation and particles from space. But the one place the magnetic field comes in is the North Pole, and in our southern hemisphere, the South Pole. And so when you go up north, the place where the magnetic field allows particles from the sun to come into the atmosphere is near the North Pole. And that's when you get to see the encounter between those particles, those energetic particles from the sun, hitting the air and making the air glow in these curtains of light. So that's what normally happens. You have to go pretty far north to be able to see this. But when the sun is super active, when there are storms on the sun, then the sun can produce so many of these particles hitting the Earth's environment that they overwhelm the magnetic protection that the Earth has. And these particles then come in much further south. We had that happen this May, that there was such a series of storms on the sun that people in the United States began reporting seeing the aurora, seeing these curtains of light. And it has nothing to do with a 27-day cycle, but everything to do with an 11-year cycle. every 11 years, the sun gets more active. And in 2024, 2025, we are reaching what we call solar maximum, the greatest activity, the greatest storm activity on the sun for 11 years. And so we may well have in the next year more examples of this, where the great curtains of colored light dancing in the night sky make their way much further south and might even be visible in California. Stay tuned, as we say on the radio.
Stay tuned. So this sun violence that's associated with the kind of hugely active sun that you're talking about, this is going to permit, potentially anyway, northern lights to get to places that northern lights might not, where the cycle not so active. And
Exactly.
will it affect things like communications as well, or these sorts of things that we count on now, satellite communications, et cetera?
Great question. So absolutely, this is the fear that scientists and the government now have, is how delicate the instruments are that we have in space against the kind of powerful storm of particles from the sun. These are charged particles, so they carry an electric charge. And so, yes, there is a great concern that if we, for example, depend, as we do, on satellites in space to give us GPS information, you know, those maps in your phone and the maps in your car that let you get to the right place without ever needing a physical map anymore. Those GPS measurements depend on satellites in outer space. If those satellites are overwhelmed by charged particles from the sun, they may stop functioning for a while, and that will throw off the GPS measurements on Earth. You may not be able to figure out exactly where you're going, which is not such an important thing for everyday life so much, but for military operations, for example, which depend on this, and airplanes, which depend on GPS, this could be a serious business. And we've actually had to ground air traffic during solar storms in the past. So there is a great concern about that. And then if there is a huge mega storm on the sun, it can actually play with the power grid, the electric power grid. So many charged particles come down to Earth, come down to the surface, that they actually begin to influence the power grid. And in 1989, the Canadian power grid was thrown off, had to be shut down because of the solar storm. So this is, we now have a solar space weather prediction center that's part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And that's the part of the government that every day keeps track of storms on the sun, precisely because of the questions that you asked.
It keeps track, that part of the government does, but is there much that we can do? Not we, I understand for major systems of the sort that you're talking about, there are systems within government, instruments within government to handle that, for U.S. communications, military communications, this kind of thing. Is there anything you can do, or are you sort of at the mercy of the fates?
Yes, absolutely. You're at the mercy of the sun. Nicely put. Absolutely. So luckily, this kind of mega storm is very, very rare. We had one in the 19th century, in 1859, that actually overwhelmed the World Wide Web of the time, which was the telegraph system. And there was so much electricity, the telegraph began to actually shock the operators as they were sitting on their keys typing out the telegraph messages. But it's very rare. It's once every couple of hundred years we have a superstorm like that. And then we have smaller storms that have temporary effects. But no, there's nothing right now that we can do. There's talk of hardening satellites, of enveloping them with material that will, in a sense, absorb or insulate them, but that would add to their weight, and that would make satellites much more difficult and expensive to launch. So there's that trade-off, and we're still at the very infancy of knowing how to deal with the effects of the sun in that way.
You know, when you talk about these things that happened long ago and then now the effects, like the Big Bang or energy as it passes through the universe and from one within our galaxy and ultimately down to us, how we all are made of a bit of stars, and it's so fascinating and wondrous and romantic, and I wonder about, as many have wondered, other beings in other places, and the law of averages, just the numbers would suggest there has to be something. But this gets me to my question. The more I read, the more I'm persuaded, and this is why I need to ask you, because you really know, that what happened on Earth was in a way unique, in that the electronic exchanges, the chemical exchanges, the process of evolving was so specific that it would be very unlikely that any other place in the universe, even given the law of averages, you would find creatures who actually are just like us. Would you agree with that?
What you're very eloquently describing is called the rare Earth hypothesis.
Oh.
That the Earth is rare, that the number of factors that contributed to Mark Thompson Show listeners coming into existence was such a large number of coincidences and unlikely things that it won't happen anywhere else. And the only way we can answer whether that's a reasonable hypothesis is by searching for our counterparts among the stars. There's no way to know just by sitting here how likely we are. We have to figure out how to search for other beings. And the good news is that this is now happening. It's happening in ways that it's never happened before. I have the privilege of serving on the board of something called the SETI Institute, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute, an organization in Mountain View that is dedicated to the search for life in the universe.
Remember doing a profile of SETI for NBC in the Bay Area. It was Cron back then, in the 80s. And it's wild that decades later, they're still going, probably with far more sophisticated technology.
We're celebrating our 40th anniversary. And I just want to mention that just in the last year, a high-tech leader has given the Institute over $100 million to expand and speed up the search for possible messages from other communicating civilizations. And so in the next few years, you will see a remarkable uptick in our ability to use telescopes to try to tune in on messages and what we call techno-signatures, signatures of technology. So this will be a topic we can discuss for years to come.
I'd love it. I remember being told as I was down there at SETI that the universe is a noisy place. Like you tune in that scope that they've got. I mean, now with the new infusion of money, these scopes are incredibly sophisticated. But the trick is to tune out a lot of the noise, right, Professor Fraknoi?
Exactly. The universe gives off not just lots of light, but lots of radio waves and infrared and other kind of waves. And finding a signal, finding something intelligent, like the Mark Thompson Show, for example, coming from another world, that would require us to be able to essentially filter out the static, the everyday noise, and look for the signal, look for the sign of technology and intelligence. And that
I have only one more minute with you, but it's always such a pleasure, and you can see in the chat everybody loves you and loves our time together. So, is there anything happening with the telescope, the
James Webb?
Yes, exactly, the Webb telescope.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because that's exactly one of the aims of the James Webb Space Telescope, is to see whether the building blocks of life, the chemicals that you talked about that went into making us, are common or not on planets or on other stars. And in the last year, we've established at least 3 or 4 planets that have sophisticated chemicals, which are the building blocks of life. And that we can't establish life itself, but just some of the chemistry that led to us seems to be happening on other planets. So that's one of the things that James Webb can do that no other telescope can do. Read the chemical makeup of the atmospheres of stars, of planets orbiting other stars.
That's remarkable. And just to be clear, the point I was making was that there can be life, and I think that I would suggest the law of averages is there has to be life in just absolutely lots of life probably in the universe. But what I was arguing is it just seems like the very specific situation that existed on Earth, it took so many different things coming together that whatever life is out there wouldn't be like this. That's what I was arguing.
Yeah, they may not look like us. They may have
may not
9
look like
ears and 22 eyes, but
Right,
that's okay. As long as they communicate, we'll be glad to talk to them.
Exactly. Look, I love talking to you. Andrew Fraknoi, the Emeritus Chair at the Astronomy Department, Foothill College, teaching at the University of San Francisco and San Francisco State. And of course, his OpenStax astronomy textbook is a great way for people to get an astronomy textbook for free. That's what OpenStax is all about. And I love that Andrew Fraknoi is involved in that as well. Kim, did you have something on our way out?
Yeah, I don't know, quickly, I read that we're going to have a blue moon in August and maybe more than one. And I wondered what that meant and when we might be able to see it.
Right. So blue moon just means now there were many definitions earlier, but it means a month when you have 2 full moons. We have 30 days in a typical month, but it takes 27 days for the moon to go from full moon to full moon. So sometimes you have 2 full moons in the same month. And that's what that's about. So that's not especially rare. We get 2 full moons in many months. But when that happens, they call the second one a blue moon. It has nothing to do with the color or anything like that. But that's what you're asking.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love our time together. Let's do it again. See you at the Perseids, and we'll compare stories after it's done. And Professor Fraknoi, what can I say? Everybody adores you, and I do too. Thank you for being part of things today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye. Love it. Wow, that's a treat.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. We are here.
My beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. Okay. What about those Christians? Love it. I think we can probably get rid of that. Yeah. I am looking forward to talking politics in the next hour. We'll do it with Mo Kelly from iHeartRadio and the KFI Radio Monster. He is so gifted when it comes to putting things into succinct perspective, and his background in journalism and in radio really prepares him for complicated conversations, and I like the way he sorts through them, and we're looking forward to talking to Mo. So smash the like button like a boss. We give you politics off the top,
Smash
a little
it with your
astronomy
iron rod.
in the second half hour here. Kim's news, and then Mo joins, and we'll really get into politics in a big way. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and Republican VP nominee J.D. Vance are both in Michigan today. Harris will be in Detroit with her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, both pictured here. They'll meet with leaders of the United Auto Workers. The union endorsed Harris for president last week. Vance will be speaking in the Detroit suburb of Shelby Township this morning. Republicans are launching an investigation into Vice President Kamala Harris's handling of the southern border. The House Oversight Committee demanding Customs and Border Protection turn over any internal communications with the Vice President's office related to illegal immigration. Committee Chairman James Comer said the committee wants to understand Harris's role in what he called the worst border crisis in American history.
So purely a political exercise,
Right.
Almost obscenely, transparently a political exercise, but it goes on nonetheless.
Hey, wait a minute. What's wrong with this picture? That doesn't look quite right. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, appeared on stage in Philadelphia and stood before a big sign. It said, Kamala chaos. Unfortunately for him, during certain parts of the speech, the people in the crowd behind him blocked the word chaos. So people watching on TV and online just saw the word Kamala. It didn't work out as planned.
No.
Is that negative campaigning karma? Perhaps.
Oh, I see. You think it's karma coming back and biting him right away?
Perhaps. I'm just saying it could be. Vaccine skepticism rising in the United States. According to a Gallup poll survey, fewer American adults say it's important to get children vaccinated today than they did in recent years. Just 40% of respondents said it's extremely important for parents to get their kids shots, compared to 58% who said the same thing in 2019. Americans are also now much less likely to say the government should require kids to be vaccinated. That's down from 62% in 2019 to 51% now. Michael Bloomberg is giving $600 million to endowments of 4 historically black medical schools. The former New York City mayor's organization, Bloomberg Philanthropies, putting forward the money to empower new generations of black doctors. Howard University College of Medicine in D.C., Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, each of them getting $175 million. Recreational marijuana sales began across the state of Ohio yesterday. Yeah, adults 21 and up can legally purchase cannabis at various medical marijuana dispensaries that have been issued now dual licenses and operating permits. This makes Ohio the 24th state in the U.S. to legalize adult use of marijuana.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah.
With Ohio, 53% of the U.S. population now lives in a jurisdiction where anyone at least 21 years old can legally possess weed.
Wow.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you'll get your...
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Interesting that artificial intelligence may play a big role in designing the venues for the 2028 Los Angeles Summer Olympics. San Francisco software company Autodesk now under contract to design the overlays for existing venues, including the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum pictured here. The software can generate very complex 3D schematics in a matter of minutes. The technology will ultimately save money for an Olympics that is already set to cost several $1 billion less than Paris, since no new permanent structures will need to be built. They'll just renovate them, retrofit them, and there you go.
And AI it.
And AI it.
All roads lead to AI, just making
AI
your life
all
better.
The way, saving money and cutting jobs as we go. More eyes are watching for illegally parked cars in Oakland. 100 new artificial intelligence cameras will turn on today. They're mounted on buses. The point? To catch drivers all along the Alameda-Contra Costa transit lines. So anyone parked at a bus stop or driving in a bus lane will get a warning before $110 fines begin in October. Whoa.
This is for those who don't recognize those places, this is in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Speaking of the Bay Area, Waymo is expanding its ride-hailing services beyond San Francisco. Driverless cars can now cover 55 square miles, and they begin cruising through Daly City and Colma now for the first time. In sports, former Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh being punished by the NCAA for his role in an impermissible recruiting investigation in 2021. Harbaugh hit with a 4-year show cause order and a 1-year suspension for violating head coach responsibility obligations.
Wow.
And lastly, Billy Beane, one of the first former Major League Baseball players to come out as gay, has died. He was 60 years old. Beane died at his home yesterday following a year-long battle with leukemia. The California native played 6 big league seasons split between the Detroit Tigers, the LA Dodgers, San Diego Padres from 1987 to 1995. He would later become Major League Baseball's senior vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was a real Bay Area fixture, wasn't he?
He was a Bay Area fixture.
Yeah.
I think he was part of the Oakland Athletics for a time as well.
And he was the subject of the book on the economics of baseball called Moneyball. And if that book title is familiar to you, you should remember the movie it was made into with Brad Pitt playing Billy Beane. So he is someone who
I think
stood out. Sorry?
I think this could be a different Billy Bean.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. There was a second Billy Bean in Major League Baseball?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
well, you know what?
This one.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I would. I'd actually like. I stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, this is a Billy. The Billy Bean you're referring to is the one with the E, who was the former executive vice president of the Oakland A's. He was into the analytics, and then they made
exactly. I was going to say I didn't realize he was gay. He wasn't.
Billy
Mark.
Bean
It's
was
a
a
different
Dodger.
guy. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I misspoke.
I misspoke, and I want to say my bad. I'm sorry.
My bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway.
There you go.
Wow.
This report, however accurate it may be, is sponsored by the fine people at Coachella Valley
Here
Coffee.
I am trying to help, and of course I'm just completely on. Thank you.
I'm completely out of tea. I had to place an order last night. I have ordered the mango iced tea.
Oh, nice.
Or tea, loose leaf tea from CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And I also put in an order for more vanilla tea because I'm addicted and I can't live without it. What are you drinking over there?
And I love the espresso, of course.
What do you got?
Here's a
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit of heaven, indeed. Order what you want, and this month, remember, for our listeners, I believe if you order anything, they send you a bit of their new coffee. Remember the offer that he made the other day?
Yeah.
So we had the Roastmaster General on with us the other day, and he said if you order anything and you use our discount code MARKT, you'll get not only the 10% off, but they will send you a bit of the new, what I call the gateway coffee, because it's got a cinnamon finish. It's almost like a dessert coffee. You'll love it. So knock around on their website, get anything you want, everything you want. Take 10% off at checkout with MARKT as the discount code, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and they'll send you that gift for the month of August.
Mo Kelly is next. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
What a first hour. We had a lot of politics. We had a lot of astronomy. Now it's back to politics and a week that is certainly consequential. I wanted to bring on someone who oftentimes takes very complicated and issues in politics that are fraught with all kinds of different interpretations, and he breaks it down so effectively. And he's agreed to be here now. You know him from iHeartRadio and KFI Radio. He is the great Mo Kelly. Mo, help us. There was a major announcement, of course, and you've got Tim Walz, who you can tell us, in your judgment, what he adds to the ticket or what he may avoid the ticket becoming, meaning he might avoid controversies that might erupt where a different decision is made as to who should share the ticket with Kamala Harris. And then tell us how you see this race evolving, because we were hearing from Frank Luntz in the first hour that he sees Harris as a frontrunner now, which is odd because she trails in some of the polling, even in some of the key swing states.
Well, no disrespect. First, thank you for having me back, Mark. No disrespect to Frank Luntz, who I've dealt with over the years, but I wouldn't call Vice President Harris the front runner. She has the lead in the momentum category, but I don't think that she would be the favorite at any point. Not now, especially not before the convention, before we have a real sense of where this race is headed. As far as Governor Walz, I think he was a fine addition. We're going to see how this shakes out the next week or two. The attacks have started already on Walz's military record. There probably will be some discussion of when he was arrested for DUI decades ago. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just saying that's how this goes as they try to define their opponents. The Republicans will try to define their opponents and also break down their opponents. Now, what does he add? I think he adds that obviously that middle America feel, that all American type person that you feel that you can not only have a beer with, but have dinner with, someone that you don't mind asking over to come inside your house, something that I don't think a lot of Republicans get from someone like J.D. Vance and of course, not Donald Trump. Governor Walz is someone who is a gun advocate, but he's also a gun advocate for safety. That's something that the Democrats usually can't say. He is someone with military experience that I alluded to. He checks boxes, obviously, that Kamala Harris cannot check, and also reaches demographics that ostensibly Kamala Harris would have real difficulty reaching. I think he's more of a plus than a minus, but we have to see how the campaign navigates these next couple of weeks as the attacks will be coming fast and furiously against him.
I was saying in the first hour, Mo, that I thought all the time spent running down his military service and the stolen valor argument and, is wasted time for the GOP, because going after the number 2 on a ticket, it just is of such limited use in terms of actually getting you anything. Do you agree with that?
I agree. If usually you wait for the number 2 to make mistakes on his or her own, going back to Dan Quayle or a Sarah Palin or even an Al Gore, you don't point your attacks at someone who's the number 2. Yeah, you may make mention of them, but it does suggest that the Harris-Walz ticket is formidable for there to be such a visceral reaction from the Republican establishment and the far right within 24 to 48 hours. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. These attacks will matter, and they will help shape the perception of the ticket, not only going into the convention, but after the convention as we get into the final days of the campaign.
And how do you assess Donald Trump's side of things? The Trump ticket still leads. And, the Electoral College favors the GOP right out of the chute in every election. So the Democrats will have to really perform. That's why I'm with you. The lunch thing, I couldn't believe you call Harris a front runner. I mean, that said, it does seem as though the GOP base will never tire of Trump. But the game he's running does seem to be getting old as people kind of leave his rallies early. Not as many people show up for them. Give me your sense of what's happening on that side of things.
If Kamala Harris did anything, and also Tim Walz continued, is that enthusiasm gap that generally Democrats have to close. They've closed that gap. Kamala Harris came out like a bat out of hell with this enthusiasm, the fundraising numbers. And the question was, when she chose her running mate, was it going to be someone which is going to provide some sort of obstacle or somehow limit her enthusiasm or derail the momentum that she had generated? And so far, that has not happened. They have maintained the momentum. They've increased the unity on the Democratic side of this conversation. But I still wouldn't call them the front runners. This is what Democrats do have going for them. If they can maintain unity, if they can inspire the masses of Democrats to come out and vote, they win. Why? Because when it comes down to the math equation of it all, there are more registered Democrats than Republicans. It's just a matter of whether people are going to come out and support or whether they're going to stay home. Now, we're nibbling around the edges when we're not talking about one of the elephants in the middle of the room when it had to do with Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. There was a concern within Democratic circles, and I think it's a fair one, that it might have splintered the party or fractured the base or opened the door for certain levels of protest going into the convention regarding what was going on in the Middle East, and also a wider conflict which could take place if Iran and Hezbollah get into the situation. So, and also, we don't know when you're vetting candidates. I mean, I know you know this, Mark, but I think people need to remember that when you're vetting candidates, you're not just vetting the potential vice presidential candidate. You're vetting the wife. You're vetting the other spouse. You're vetting the family, because if you're old enough to remember names like Billy Carter, or if you're not old enough to remember Billy Carter, you'll definitely remember Hunter Biden. These are things which have to be taken into account and can derail a candidacy very quickly.
Such a good point. And I remember, having grown up in Washington, D.C., there were, I'm going to say, 3 different occasions where feds came to our door and were actually talking to us. We're just, people who live on the block, about those others who were nominated or being considered for high enough positions that they were being vetted. And it was a weird thing. They weren't talking to me. I was just a kid, but they were talking to my mom and dad. So let me ask you about Walz's positions that are being tagged as wildly radical, progressive, socialist, whatever they may be. It seems to me I was saying, and I was saying this the last couple of days, that, codifying Roe, I mean, that is essentially supported by most of the nation. I mean, I don't see how that's radical in any way. Giving breakfast and lunches to kids in school, I don't see how that's particularly radical or how that's going to, and even the gun legislation to which you've referred, that is supported by an overwhelming number of people in America, even gun owners. So you're left with things like the trans rights bill that is in Minnesota, and also the immigrant services legislation that is in Minnesota. And maybe there's some others, but those seem to be the two that you can go, okay, but that there can be legitimate disagreement on. How do you assess the tagging of Walz as a progressive and specific policies within Minnesota to which he can be linked that might further that tagging?
Well, you took the word right out of my mouth, because I was going to say this is about tagging and labeling. This is not a policy discussion. This is not an analysis of the votes that he had when he was, or the laws that he signed when he was governor, or the votes that he had when he was a congressperson. This is about labeling him and also juxtaposing him with the perceived boogeyman of the radical left. Remember, with Joe Biden has always been a moderate within the party and is a moderate on the national stage. But you have Donald Trump tell the story. He's one of the most radical left politicians, with the exception of Barack Obama. Oh, by the way, he worked under Barack Obama. This is the strategy of labeling. It's not a real conversation. It's not a nuanced conversation. It's not even a factual discussion. This is for people who want to get on social media and want to talk about these issues in shorthand. You and I discuss these issues every single day. We're diving into the minutiae. We are looking at this on a base policy level, looking for facts. That's not how most Americans, unfortunately, I think, are approaching this. It doesn't matter if I were put on the ticket, if you were put on the ticket, or someone like Mitt Romney were put on the ticket. Most of the labels would have been the same, and you want to affix him and tag him to the most radical left idea possible.
So it's just dirty politics, really. I mean, it doesn't represent, I know those are my words, but it doesn't represent what you're saying necessarily any kind of policy position as much as it does the efficacy with which you can smear somebody or tag somebody or, put the stink on somebody.
Right. That's what it comes down to, because it is about winning an election. It's not about having a marketplace or competition of ideas to see if the Republican ideas are better than the Democrats' ideas. This is about pointing the finger and alleging that that person on the left side of the aisle is somehow radical, socialist, leftist, dangerous, next to Antifa, and probably having birthday parties with communists and socialists. It's not a real discussion. It's about animating a base with buzzwords that people are semi-familiar with. I get into discussions all the time. It's like, why are you calling that person a communist? Do you not know what that person has done for big business and capitalism? But the word communism or socialism, they just fly out of people's mouths with no real understanding of what they are as either a government system or an economic system.
It's so well put. It's almost past the expiration date that I can ask this question, but it's not quite. The horse is out of the barn, okay? But you made me think of it when you said it's about winning elections. Would Shapiro have been a better choice to win the election?
Well, you have to look at it within the context of the variables in that particular election. I would say any other and this is assuming that there are no major skeletons in his closet or his family's closet. Any other election other than in 2024, I would say absolutely. But there has to be an honest conversation with about the splintering of the Democratic Party and what problems. I'm not saying it's fair, but it's a factual presence about how Democrats are not able to manage this Israel issue with any type of competence. And they are more scared of losing an election than they are doing the right thing for the good of people. That's what I think.
That's interesting, and you're right. The Republican position on Israel is so much easier. It's kind of turnkey. It's like, yep,
Yes.
we're with them all the way. No, there's no subtlety. There's no nuance. There's no where the Democrats are trying to split the baby a little bit, huh?
Well, they have to, because let's not forget, they want to win Michigan. Michigan has a high Muslim Arab population. You know, there's some real mathematics to this. And regardless of what you may feel about Israel, Hamas, Gaza, there is a measurable percentage of people who vote Democrats who are opposed to the Democrats' public stance on this, or feel that Joe Biden has not been tough enough on Benjamin Netanyahu, or has not fought hard enough for those in Gaza. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that there is a real and measurable segment of the voting Democratic populace to where, if you're Kamala Harris, it has to be a consideration you have to make. When you're talking about electoral college politics and that math, no, there's no good argument that you can make that where you would let a sitting Pennsylvania governor sit on the sidelines when you know fundamentally you must win Pennsylvania to win the White House. Politics is very complicated, and it's not just on the surface of, well, he's the governor for Pennsylvania, we have to have him. No, there's some other issues where you could torpedo the party before you even get out of the convention.
Sure. It's interesting, though, that this is a particularly piercing question because he is such a popular governor in the state that you do need to carry, yet he coexists as that alongside these other things that you've mentioned, these very difficult policy decisions that involve a lot of people's gut decision making, meaning that it's a deal buster for them. Here you go from teacher Lori. No, it's anti-Semitism. It's rampant in the USA, regardless of the Middle East, and there's a quality of that.
Yes. That's part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, and you know this because we are a racist, Jew-hating country. I'm sorry. I mean, it really is true. The undercurrent of both are there. And there's some other undercurrents as well. I don't mean to reduce it just to that, but it's a legitimate question.
But look, it's never been about the best person. It's about who's viable and who's electable, and whether you can convince all of your base to come out and support. And if you look at the positions of Josh Shapiro, it's not really different than anyone else in the Democratic Party. But the perception of him taking certain stances as a Jewish man may not be received in the same way. And I say this all the time. It may not be fair, but it's a fact. In the same way that Kamala Harris may take certain positions as a former attorney general, which are not loved by African Americans, even though that was her job as an attorney general and the DA of San Francisco. A lot of times it's the optics, not necessarily the factual analysis, that his position, Josh Shapiro, is really no different than the Democratic position or other Democrats, are probably not even any different than Tim Walz when it comes down to it.
Sure. No Contendo says there's a high Sudanese population in Milwaukee too. Muslim.
Big shout out.
That's in Milwaukee. Yeah, it's true. The upper Midwest, Minnesota has it too. Minnesota has a very strong immigrant population that identifies as Muslim, and in that way, it complicates the demography to some degree. I saw a very nice comment about Mo Kelly here. Let me just grab it because I've started. Here it is from Candace. Love this guest. So interesting. How about that, Mo Kelly? Got seeds of a fan club right here on the show. I love it. So as you see things unfolding, Mo, it sounds to me like, at least on they've got momentum, but on the side of the Democrats, it feels like they don't want to break anything. Like they don't want to, don't touch anything. We're going along fine, and they'll have their convention. They should get a bump from that, right?
Yeah, they should. But, you want three things. You want to have a moment. And Kamala Harris had that moment where everyone took notice of her and she had good fundraising. And now they're developing momentum with the addition of Tim Walz. And I thought was a fantastic first campaign event to see that arena filled to the brim. that type of enthusiasm and excitement. You literally cannot buy that. You can't fake that. But they want that moment, which is now turned into momentum, to then turn into a movement that they can carry through November. And yes, it is do no harm between now and the convention, because they're going to get that bump. It's going to be a big celebration, and you want to come out of the convention feeling unified and ready to go the rest of the way, and having the Democratic Party moving together in unity, or at least the spirit of unity, to the common goal of winning the White House. And as I would say, as an added aspect of it, if you can win the White House, there's a good chance that you may get the House and hold on to the Senate. Not so sure about holding on to the Senate, because the math is not positive for the Democrats, where they're defending more seats than actually having the opportunity to turn seats and win seats. But yeah, they're trying to make sure they don't break anything between now and the convention.
You can find Mo Kelly on iHeartRadio, on KFI Radio, every day, Monday through Friday, from 7 until 10. Great radio. It's not at all politically centric, I should say, meaning they do a lot of stuff that's not politics. But when you get into politics, you can tell Mo is a ninja. And I just love getting you over here, because we can really just splash around and do nothing but politics. But, I love your show and love you. And thanks for stopping through, pal.
Love you, my brother. Anytime.
Okay, Mo Kelly, everybody. Bravo. Bravo.
The Mark Thompson Show.
By the way, if you're looking at polling, I just thought I'd share it with you. I mean, it's now all within a point, it would seem. National polling, which really don't need to spend a whole lot of time on, has Harris ahead by a point. This is, again, this is a Marist College poll. And in Wisconsin, just look at the swings. You've got a 1-point lead, 50 to 49% for Harris. In Michigan, you have a dead heat at 49 between Trump and Harris. And in Pennsylvania, a state we just spent a little time talking about, it's Trump. And he has it by 2 points now, 49 to 47. Again, that's within the margin of error, but that's the latest. It's the newest poll, the Marist NPR, I think, PBS NewsHour poll, and they come through Marist College. That's the latest. I mean, too close to call, but nonetheless, certainly you'd say the momentum, having, at least for the moment, slid to the Democrats. Still so many ways not to win. So I would say fewer paths to victory for a Kamala Harris than for a Donald Trump. And that's just the way we're set up in this country with the Electoral College. We'll take a break for Kim's News. It's not really a break. I don't go anywhere, and I try to contribute. And I listen in rapt attention as Kim does the news. I don't know why I said break. In a way, I misspoke. If I could just,
I misspoke.
Yeah, right. So we'll
my
do
bad.
That.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it is my bad. I'm sorry. It is Albert's birthday, and maybe I was just carried away in the ebullience of the celebration. I mean, it's
Sure.
even though I don't see it in ebullience is a ding word. And I do have a couple of stories when we come back related to politics and not related to politics. So if you're done with politics, if you're through with it, you need a break, but you do like public policy, I do have some stories for you. And I have a law and disorder. And in law and disorder, I'm going to discuss the fate of the 2 astronauts who've now been in space for more than 60 days. They were only supposed to be up there for 4 days. Now,
I blame Boeing.
It's 60 days. Oh, that's good.
I blame you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of those stories to come, and Belinda Waymouth with It's the Planet Stupid, as well as we talk about stuff going on the planet. All of that, or as much of it as we can get to, next. Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by you. Let's talk about Tropical Storm Debbie for just a moment. The Carolinas are bracing for a second landfall from Tropical Storm Debbie. It's expected to make landfall again Wednesday night or early Thursday in South Carolina before marching northward into North Carolina, Virginia, and beyond. Forecasters say Debbie could be the wettest landfalling hurricane ever. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is accusing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of stolen valor. The campaign event in Detroit today saw Vance claiming that Walz abandoned his unit in the National Guard just before it was deployed to Iraq. Both vice presidential hopefuls served, Vance a Marine combat correspondent during the Iraq War, Walz in the National Guard for 24 years before his 2005 run for Congress. Former President Trump says he wants to debate Vice President Kamala Harris, and soon.
He just can't find a opening on his schedule?
Yeah. In an interview with Fox and Friends, the former president suggested he and Harris could soon reach an agreement after Trump backed out of a planned ABC News debate. Trump said it will be announced fairly soon, and he said he would like Fox to host the event.
Sure.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. Get those Christians in the hall with you.
Security is being stepped up for Taylor Swift's concerts in Austria this weekend following arrests connected to an alleged terror plot. Austrian officials said 2 suspects were taken into custody today. One of them, a 19-year-old Austrian citizen who allegedly pledged allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State. Officials said one of them focuses on the 19-year-old suspect for the alleged planned attack was Swift's Vienna concerts. So now security being stepped up there.
You know, when they start going after Taylor Swift, that's when I know things are really getting bad.
You start targeting Swifties, we've had enough. That's
it.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work out. Most Americans, apparently, have an unfavorable view of the U.S. healthcare system. That, according to a new YouGov poll, it shows 53% of Americans have a very or somewhat unfavorable view of healthcare in this country. 40% had a very or somewhat favorable view of the system. Meanwhile, 40% again, have a very or somewhat favorable view of healthcare. Men tended to have a more positive view of it than women. Straight people tended to have a more positive view of it than LGBTQ plus people.
Men have a good view of it because we never call the doctor or go to the doctor. So
is that
of course
what it is?
Yeah, that's the general positive. Now, I'm the opposite. As you know, I've got almost the doctor on speed dial, not because I want him on speed dial, but he's got me on every medication in the world, even though I thought I was perfectly healthy. But my point is, I can understand those who don't call the doctor, why you don't, because it is insane. Before you know it, you're like a walking Walgreens pharmacy, and they're treating you for a bunch of stuff, some of which you don't even have.
Why are you yelling?
So all I'm trying to say is, wherever you are on the doctor thing, I'm with you.
Hey, speaking of health, a chemical that's used in rocket fuel and fireworks has been found in multiple food products popular with babies and children.
Oh my God, that's got to be great. It's fantastic.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
That's according to findings published by Consumer Reports. The tests show the chemical perchlorate in 2/3 of nearly 200 samples from grocery stores and fast food chains. Food in plastic containers had the highest levels, followed by food in plastic wrap and paperboard. Fresh fruit and vegetables also contained elevated amounts of perchlorate. The chemical has been linked to potential brain damage in infants and fetuses and thyroid issues in adults. Let's hear it for perchlorate, everyone. Yay. Come on now. And if, you weren't maybe thinking, hey, I'd like to eat some more fast food then, well, head over to McDonald's because they're giving customers the chance to walk down memory lane with their latest special meal offering. The Collector's Meal goes on sale August 13th. It features 6 collectible cups reminiscent of the glasses the fast food chain sold in the 80s and 90s. They spotlight classic McDonald's giveaways like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Beanie Babies, and Jurassic Park and Shrek. So you can have some free glasses with your perchlorate, and congratulations. This report is sponsored by you, which means we would not be able to do this crowdfunded show without you. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Themarkthompsonshow.com is where you find the Patreon link and the PayPal link. Easy to click through, easy to contribute to this show and help keep us rolling. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
I come from regular stock.
There's a reason that this place is fun. Don't ever use that word.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
What you say is the political dogma that they're trying to shove down our throats.
Straight up, right in, no problem.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Cuatro años más.
I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Say what?
Do you have a secret talent?
Put that coffee down.
You get nothing.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Did you really just do that?
In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Loving it, loving it, loving it. Thank you for being here. We are a live show every day, Monday through Friday, and it's 2 hours. You come, you go, you stay, you leave, however you want to do it. Thank you, all of you who support us, and it is Albert's birthday today. He is one of the great minds who puts this show together.
Albert, thank you.
And we celebrate him on his 33rd year. Very exciting to have him in the mix. Well, one of the great things about this show is it lets, oh, there it is from Vilma, my girlfriend Vilma. $20 and a happy birthday, Andrew. Wait a minute. Not Andrew, but Albert. I hate my iPhone with the dictation. Yeah, the dictation can screw you, can't it, Albert? It's a frustration. And on your birthday, as Vilma's trying to make a donation to the show in your name, it can be particularly vexing.
Big shout out.
But a big shout out to Vilma.
On your way to something and you type in OMW and it autocorrects on my way with the exclamation point. I hate that.
Yeah. It's but put up the first thing that she was going to put up there, and I'll just see that through.
Unsaved
you
it.
got it. Anyway, thank you. I believe it was $20. Yeah.
Donation. Thank you
so thank you, Vilma. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Happy birthday, Albert. Thank you for all you do, Louise.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out to Albert on his 33rd. He's got the clean-cut look as he's sliding into the 34s. VG George with a $10 super sticker. Thank you, sir. And thank you to everybody who supports this show. We are crowd-funded, so appreciate all the ways in the crowd that you guys fund. Every little bit helps. Isn't AIPAC doing the same thing with the GOP, Bowman, and Bush? Yes, I think that's right. No contendo. I think so. I mean, there is a parallel there. And you saw those seats fall to really strong campaigning and funding that was associated with AIPAC. I think that's absolutely true, and it's a fair point. All right, now, from politics to stuff that overlaps with politics a little bit, but...
The Mark Thompson Show.
We, once a week on Wednesdays, we like to check in on the environment, on the planet, on policy regarding both. We do it in a segment we call It's the Planet, Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet.
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid is eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hello, Belinda. Welcome.
Hi, how is everyone?
Everyone's great. It's Albert's birthday. There's a bounce in our step. There's a new VP pick, as you know.
Yeah, we've got to talk about him. But I do want to say happy birthday, Albert. Happy birthday.
Oh, Albert, that's sweet, isn't
Thank
it?
you.
Yeah.
34. What a great age. Enjoy it, man.
Well, he's
Enjoy
33,
it.
though, I think, actually.
Oh, 33. Okay.
I was just saying he's
Yes.
beginning. That means he's completed 33 years. Isn't that how birthdays work? So he's just completed 33. So this is the 34th year on the planet. Is that correct?
Yes, I think
Yes,
you've got
okay.
that. Yeah, timing. Great. Well done, Mark. Well done.
But I was trying to explain why I said he's beginning his 34th. All right.
Yeah.
Now, just because I like things that segue well, I wanted to talk about this VP selection in relation to the things that you talk about, which are environmentally related. What is his record on the environment?
So good. Oh, man. So here's the thing. He comes to this position with a better policy portfolio and environmental record than Al Gore did when he became the vice presidential, nominee on the ticket with Bill Clinton. Walz has been amazing in Minnesota, absolutely incredible. And, they're on track to be running on completely on renewable electricity by 2040. And he has he passed a law in June to streamline renewable energy projects, so that they didn't get caught up in all this red tape. There's going to be more access to EV charging stations. I mean, he's putting all these things in place. He's gone bolder than, Biden obviously wanted to go very bold with the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, but he was really hampered by, the deal making that he had to do to pass, that incredible piece of legislation. But what Walz has achieved in Minnesota, they're on a faster track than California to be on renewable energy. And yeah, he's a real environmental leader. So environmental groups are thrilled with the Harris-Walz ticket. It couldn't come at a better time. It's amazing. He had 6 terms as a congressman, before he became a governor. And they say he's got this very sort of quiet, behind the scenes way of working. And he has, all this experience in Congress. I sort of feel like all these things are going to line up so well. And how did he become such an environmentalist? This is really important. Mark, it was visceral, firsthand experience of climate change in Minnesota. So they've had all these droughts. Farmers are having to liquidate the number of animals in their herds. They just don't have enough feed for them. They had smoke from the Canadian wild forest fires, deluging the Twin Cities. The Great Lakes area is down in snow and ice because of the hotter climate. So that's really had an economic impact there. So he's really he's experiencing the firsthand these visceral the data, the facts on the ground, and he is then enacting policy to protect his constituents. And he wants Duluth, which is a place in Minnesota, people are moving there from states like California because it's seen as being climate change proof, that it won't be as badly affected as other parts of the US. And the thing that's really great about him, this, behind the scenes, way of, kind of quietly dealing with things, he also has been able to really communicate with his rural constituents and get them on board with all the things that he's doing to try and make them more resilient to climate change. And he's talking about things like, vector-borne illnesses, because there'll be, more mosquitoes and things, especially in rural areas around water, all these things. So I'm so excited, because I feel like, where we were a month ago was we weren't in a good place, and there was a real sort of, lethargy. And now we've got this very exciting Democratic ticket, and it's really exciting from an environmental point of view. So,
well, putting specifics into things the way you just did really does help to, again, appreciate those aspects of climate change that are more than just trying to get off of fossil fuel burning cars by 2040, or these things, various slogans or goals that are out there. When you talk about what they actually live in Minnesota, which is the effects of climate change and the increase in mosquitoes, the increase in these diseases that are airborne and beyond, you begin to, I think, frame it in a way that shows you that this guy is more than just a talker. He's actually living it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is there is really incredible reporting being done on all these environmental issues, but it doesn't get front page. And it's so, it's just, I think it does a huge disservice to, not just American citizens, but to people all over the world. Kim was just talking about the storm, Debbie. Now, Debbie is going offshore right now, and when she goes offshore, she's going to pick up more of a moisture content from the hot ocean, and that's why when she comes back on shore, she's going to be even more devastating. There are areas in Florida, they say, where the storm surge, this is from the ocean, is going to be at 10 feet, and people are being told, you've got to evacuate. But the amount of water that Debbie is going to be dumping on these states is huger because of warmer ocean, warmer atmosphere, But okay, so Walz is great. And then I have to give a shout out to Joe Biden, because he doesn't stop. So yesterday, and this also dovetails with the story that you just told, Kim, in the news about this awful, I think you said it was from rocket fuel that's now in food. So yesterday we had this historic emergency ban of this awful herbicide. So the long name of it, tetrachloroterephthalate, Dacthal. It's a herbicide. It's used for crops, broccoli, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, and onions. And what it does is it kills the grasses and the other weeds that come in and hamper the crop. Now, this was banned in 2009 in Europe, and we've been waiting a long time for it to be banned here. So what happens is a pregnant woman who gets exposed to it, her fetus can have lower birth weight, it can have IQ, developmental motor skill impairment. It's bad. And in the Salinas Valley here, where they are using this herbicide, they're saying that half of adolescent women are being exposed to it. And what's happened is, so the EPA has been saying to the manufacturer of this herbicide, which is also based here for years, we need all the data on what the health risks are. And of course, the manufacturer has been, slow to do this. But what they're showing is that, women who handle the herbicide have, a 4 to 20 time above the safe limit of exposure to it. And here's the problem with our vegetables is, listeners, don't think like, oh, well, I'll just wash my broccoli more carefully. Yes, absolutely do that. But the problem is these herbicides, how do you think they kill the grasses? They get into the plant. So they'll be in the tissue of the broccoli stalk, or the floret of the broccoli. So this is really historic. This has, as I said, has not happened in almost 40 years. There's been an emergency ban. So the emergency ban takes effect immediately. But for it to become a permanent thing, obviously, the company may contest it. Farmers have, because they say, well, if we can't use this herbicide, we have to have more workers out there weeding. Well, I'd say if this is going to affect children and your children, because you live by your farm or on your farm, or, I think, it's just clear what you have to do.
But that does put a point on it, which is that it's about money. I mean, it's sort of
everything's about money.
Right. So let's, I don't care if there are literally poisons in the product I produce, because I can produce it for less money than if I were not to use the poisons, and I'd have to hire more people. It's just obscene.
It's obscene. But I've got a really good story about money. So everything is about money. It is about the bottom line. And it could mean that we get a lot of, bad decisions made, obviously. But I have to say the pivot that Trump has had to do on electric vehicles, because he's accepted this big whack of money from Elon Musk, even though Elon Musk is now walking back that he's going to be giving him $45 million a month, that he's not disclosing how much he's going to give him. But so Trump the other day had to say, I'm for electric cars. I have to be, because Elon endorsed me very strongly. I have no choice. It's sort of like it's mad, bought and paid for. He's meeting with all these billionaires and he's having to walk back how he feels about Bitcoin, how he feels about TikTok, because once you take their money, then you have to endorse their product. And now he's doing it with electric vehicles, which he's been so down on and such a liar about. The stuff that Trump says about EVs, they don't run in the cold. They only go 10 miles per charge. It's going to cost $9 trillion to put in all the charging stations we'll need across the US. I mean, that's all just, ridiculous, fake.
He doesn't know anything about anything. I mean, he really doesn't. He knows how to state something with a flourish. He knows how to do a photo op, and that's really about it for Donald Trump. And he knows how to meet you on the golf course at noon. That is really what he does. And then he sells the country out to, as you suggest, these various deals. And I like that you mentioned these about faces he did with the Bitcoin community. He said Bitcoin was a sham. Bitcoin's, but then all of a sudden now he's literally speaking before the Bitcoin conference and talking about the future of Bitcoin and crypto, because he just got a big dump of cash into his campaign from those people. Same is true of Peter Thiel, by the way. Peter Thiel gave him all the money, and that's how he ended up with J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel is that's a J.D. Vance pick all the way. And as you say, on these other issues with Elon Musk, he's had to now embrace electric vehicles. Wow. It's and he has to square that, remember, with what he's promised the oil magnates, where he said, you write the legislation and I will give it to you. He literally said that for $1 billion. That'll be the trade. You write it, I'll do it. Drill, baby, drill.
Yeah. He's got so many spinning plates, and the level of hypocrisy is crazy. But also the stuff that he says, that there's this federal mandate that we're going to EVs, and it's and this is just that's just ridiculous fake news. Biden hasn't said there's a federal mandate and everyone has to be driving an EV by 2030. But he just says whatever comes into his head. But the last thing that I want to talk about is absolutely about EVs, and absolutely also sort of flies in the face of what Trump thinks he and Project 2025 could do with the next administration, because tons of the IRA financing has gone into red states, swing states, places where labor, land are both cheap and where there aren't super strict environmental laws. And one of the stories that I read the other day, I thought it was so great. So in Georgia, Hyundai is building not just a factory, they're building a giga factory. It covers 3,000 acres of land. It's going to provide 8,500 jobs. And so the Republican representative of the district where Hyundai is putting in this gigafactory, Buddy Carter, has said, whoever's going to be in the White House, I'm supporting the jobs. The jobs are the most important. And the jobs are, yes, there are factors on the ground in these states that make it attractive to, a company like Hyundai. But it's absolutely also because of the IRA, because of the money that's been unlocked for, to invest in these, enormous EV plants. So it's the infrastructure bill that, Biden was able to pass. Trump promised that there was going to be an infrastructure bill. Remember right when he took office, that was his thing. we're going to build bridges. We're going to improve the roads. He didn't get it done. And Biden got it done with the IRA. And so I really want us to, remember this, for our one-term, President
to take
Biden,
stock of what he's done in one term. You're right. And it's funny, I had the time that Trump took office, I thought he actually might get it done. I actually thought, and I think I shared this with listeners, I thought he had so much political capital at the time. He had all the momentum. He came into, even though I understand he lost the popular vote, he came in with all this popularity, and my God, his base would back him up on anything. He could say anything and do anything, and they'll back him up. And I thought the infrastructure bill would sail through, but it turned out it just got backburnered. He just, paid it lip service. Instead, he made his priority the tax cut, and he got the tax cut done, and that was the end. After that, he got nothing done.
Well, it was also the Republican Party. They just wouldn't vote for that kind of big government spending. So it was, and he couldn't persuade them otherwise. But the thing that's really sort of, to me, it's again the sort of the hypocrisy of it. So you've got all these red states that are really. And none of those representatives voted for the IRA. They just didn't. I mean, they did vote for the infrastructure bill, but they, some of them. But
no, the GOP did not. IRA. That's right.
No, yeah. And they're the ones whose states are benefiting from it. And Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he's also saying, look, we are going to protect the jobs that are coming here. That's what's important now. They're not going to suddenly say, oh, no EVs in our state because of Project 2025, and Trump is back. And so, and like I said, so the lion's share of IRA funding has gone to these states. So let me just read out this, because this is interesting. North Carolina has gotten $19 billion from IRA monies, 22 projects. Michigan, 30 projects, which is turning into 12,000 jobs. And Georgia, 28 projects to the tune of $15 billion invested. And this will become or provide almost 16,000 jobs. So people are really looking at this as a real economic revolution is happening. And it's like I've said over and over on the program, this is happening in spite of oil companies, in spite of politicians like Trump, trying to stand in the way of progress, Joe Manchin, all these people. This change is going to happen, and it is. And so that's why the Walz Harris ticket is so exciting. And I was reading this thing, a Tennessee, I think it's Eastern Tennessee, a representative there was talking about a place, it's a very small town, there's going to be an EV factory there. This is a place that has lived with generational poverty, and they're about to start living with generational prosperity. And, it just, it makes me a bit emotional because, this is what you need to do for the people who elect you. You need to take care of them and provide them with good paying jobs. And it's happening. So I think this is an exciting day in America.
That's very, very impressive, the way you frame it and suggest that this next group of leaders may continue with what has been an extremely successful run for Joe Biden. I mean, you're essentially pointing to policy measures and some big steps he took to ensure the future of the planet. And it was not easy, given the politics of America at the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just want to say something quickly, because I see someone in the chat talking about the cost of living and how groceries are expensive and blaming that on Biden. That's just not Biden. That's happened all over the world. I mean, the cost of living has gone up. I mean, we were in a global pandemic, and, that really has affected prices. I mean, tons of people I know don't go out to eat anymore because it's so expensive. I'm from New Zealand, and we've got young New Zealanders leaving in droves to go and live in Australia, and they're posting on TikTok, now that I'm in Australia and making more money, I can afford to buy tomatoes for my salad again. So don't think it's Biden who made, who caused your grocery bill to go up. This is the world over. And not that I don't have sympathy, because obviously I do. Things are more expensive, and it's I know, super, super tough. But you can't just blanketly say Joe Biden caused that. He didn't.
Yeah, there's a lot of blaming in this country and in other countries too. And, when you're the top dog, you do get a lot of the heat and a lot of the blame. But it is worth, if you really want to know, it is worth knowing that it's not something necessarily that the President of the United States controls. If these, in good times, you get the benefit, and in bad times, you get a little bit of the blame. That's just the nature of the beast. Record corporate profits. Thank you. Tony Z points to that. I mean, it's true. There's I had a story the other day, I don't think I even got to it, but where essentially corporate buybacks are the coin of the realm in the corporate world. So they're not even about the bottom line from the standpoint of making products, let's say, or from the standpoint of an industry. They feed the bottom line with stock buybacks, and that's how various corporate benefits are computed, and that's how compensation is computed. So in any case, you're right. It's far more complicated. I love that you sorted some of this out, and sounds like you're going to have a good couple of weeks, because it looks like the Democrats are on a glide path to at least land comfortably at their convention. And then after that, I think the real dogfight begins. I mean, it could be pretty tough and nasty. It'll continue to be an uphill climb, but there's a lot here for environmentalists and those who care about the future. You can find Belinda Waymouth across social media. Belinda Waymouth is Waymouth, Belinda Waymouth. And here on Wednesdays, are we good? I'm happy to give you another minute or two. If I don't want any arguments, I don't want any problems, I don't want anybody to feel like they were cut short, there's time. I can tell all our stations we can run a minute or two late. Are you happy?
Look, I think we covered a lot of really positive, environmental news. So I'm happy because, I want people to know all the good stuff that's happening. And
today was a really good day. Yeah, I appreciate you, Belinda. Thank you, says Doug. Yeah.
Yeah, totally my pleasure. And get out, spread the word to anyone who you know who may be undecided about which way they should be voting, because it's so clear right now. It's so clear.
Indeed. Belinda Waymouth, everybody. Thanks, Belinda. That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More It's the Planet Stupid.
No, it's the Planet Stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Love my Belinda. That was a good day today with some good news.
Well, it's Albert's birthday, so it had to be the best.
Really, yeah, that's right. Albert's birthday. How's it going so far, Albert?
Albert, thank you.
On the birthday front, it's been uneventful, right?
It's been a lot of kind messages all over the place.
Yeah.
Generationally.
Yeah.
A lot of the older folks like to greet me on Facebook, and then my friends like to text me.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then of course the chat.
The chat has been enveloping you with love. It's been quite a remarkable phenomenon. Karen says, for the 5 spot,
big shout out.
She says, happy birthday, Albert. I appreciate your work on the show and on KGO. Enjoy your 30s. I think it is the decade of the most change. That is wisdom from Karen Combs.
Thank you, Karen.
It's not. I thought she was going to say it may be the decade with the most fun, or the decade with the most. I think you could say a lot of things, but I love that she said change. That's what I was saying about growing up.
Yeah.
33, it's time. You don't have to, but I'm just saying that is the age at which you might.
I say live it up in your 30s, Albert, because when you get to 40, you're like, shoot, really? So you might as well just have a great time.
Well, you can still live it up, but you can also grow up while you live it up, Gosh, I had a bunch of San Francisco stories that I never got to, and I had a Law and Disorder that I never got to, and I'm just never going to get to it because I've got to move on, I can put it off to the tomorrow. Let me just do one story which I did tease, because I don't like to tease and not pay it off. Can I do it real quick about the astronauts?
Let's do it. Please.
Okay, so this I think, again, only because I teased it. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
The Boeing Starliner astronauts have now been in space for more than 60 days, and there is no end in sight. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, or is it Suni Williams? 2 veteran NASA astronauts piloting the first crewed test flight of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft have now been in space for 63 days. I mean, you understand, this is their Gilligan's Island. Like, it was supposed to be a 3-hour tour or whatever Gilligan's Island was supposed to be, and then they ended up as castaways, right? So this was supposed to be, this whole thing has gone on 7 weeks longer than it was initially expected to be. It's supposed to be a couple days. There is still no clear return date in sight. And NASA is now making clear that the astronauts may not come home on a Starliner at all.
What?
Thanks, Boeing.
Yeah. And that in itself could extend the astronauts' stay on the International Space Station by another 6 months.
Oh, man.
Pushing their return into 2025. This is a stunning change of tone for NASA because until now, officials have repeatedly indicated that Williams and Wilmore are going to come home on a Starliner. There's a backup scenario. Don't worry about it, guys. Are you kidding? We've got everything all figured out. Well, now they're suggesting that the SpaceX vehicle is becoming a serious option as the way to get them back. The SpaceX vehicle it's called Crew Dragon. It's the way to essentially rescue them. This is a quote. I would say that our chances of an uncrewed Starliner return have increased a little bit based on where things have gone over the last week or two. Uncrewed means they're going to get them off of that thing, right? He's the associate administrator for NASA's space operations, and he was talking about NASA's review processes that need to be completed before a return date for Starliner is set. But again, new data coming in, new analysis, different discussion. They are going to shift in a different direction. They've had problems with the propulsion system on Boeing, et cetera. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it is fascinating. And now, contingency planning, they have several return scenarios if the Starliner is deemed unsafe to bring them back. One option is to launch that SpaceX Crew Dragon mission, Crew 9. There'll be 2 astronauts on board instead of the 4 planned, so that would allow them 2 empty seats for Williams and Wilmore to occupy for the flight home. But that means Williams and Wilmore will remain on the space station for another 6 months before that thing gets up there. So Starliner would be left to fly home empty, and NASA would have to decide whether the data the mission gathered on the flight is enough to give the space agency confidence to officially certify Starliner to make routine trips to orbit.
No.
I would suggest that there's a cloud of doubt around Starliner. So as they orbit, and they could be orbiting for another 6 months, I just want them to know that I and all of us here on the MTS, we're keeping track of them. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
And that's what a bummer that is. What kind of psychology you need to be able to handle the fact that you're up there for a short time, but potentially a longer time, and now potentially an immensely long time?
Well, it can affect your body because aren't you exposed to more radiation the longer you're up there? I don't know. I mean, I think they put them through, strenuous tests to make sure they're mentally prepared for any scenario, but still, yikes.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and it takes its toll on your body because of the lack of gravity. So, I mean, that was the whole test that they did between Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly. When the Kelly brothers were up, one was down, they're twins. Then when they come back, they run all the tests on both to see how their bodies have changed. But it's got a George Clooney in the movie Gravity feel. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. It does have a Stranded kind of feel. I hate to say it. But Sandra Bullock in Gravity, yes. Well, maybe they'll fall in love the way George and Sandra did in the movie Gravity, and it'll be an interesting finish, and they'll stick the landing,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, I know you need to get on to your birthday celebration, sir. What a week with the Olympics going down. And have you watched any of the golf at the Olympics? I know you're a golfer.
Yeah, the men's golf wrapped up. I think the women are playing this week, so it's exciting.
Your girlfriend, does she play golf?
No, she doesn't. She's a bowler.
She's a bowler. That's very cool. Do you know?
It's her secret party trick.
Half of my Instagram feed is great bowling shots. They have these great mashups of splits that I don't bowl, but I just love watching it. It's just the coolest. Well, we love you, Albert, and I wish you long life and happiness, pal. You're a big part of the show, and it's really fun to celebrate with you. Thanks for coming in today.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim is doing the after party live now. Get over there and get with
All
it.
the time. Bye-bye.
Good times. Tomorrow, David Katz, The Law. Till then, bye-bye.